This is the all-new Insta360 ONE RS, the successor to the previous Insta360 ONE R. And it builds upon that exact same foundation, this idea that cameras could, or perhaps should, be modular, meaning that you can upgrade the camera and sensor, or the brain, or the battery, or the peripherals to fit your needs. So is this a jack of all trades, or just kind of camera dork Lego? Let's talk about it. Where's all my Insta360 merch when I need it? I'm sure I've got a hat around here. I found the hat on this weird IKEA light. By the way, this video is sponsored by Insta360, so. So what's interesting about this camera is that it is very much new and improved and updated, and yet very much the same. And so that means if you loved the original ONE R, then you are gonna love the ONE RS. And if you didn't love the ONE R, well, you still might love the ONE RS because it has a lot of good things going for it. For starters, I want to say thank you to Insta360 for actually making this camera. When the original ONE R was announced, it was exciting to think that we could, in the future, get an updated camera or an updated processor or something like that, but we still didn't have any actual proof that those things were coming. And I say this because I've seen loads of first-gen products get announced with like these big promises of what will happen in the future or what could happen in the future. But so often those products get left behind, and then you're just left holding a bunch of modular bits and pieces that are no longer supported by that company. And so I'm really happy and excited to say that if you are a ONE R owner and you're interested in the new main lens and sensor, or the new brain, or the new all that kind of stuff, you can just upgrade the pieces as you see fit. You don't need to buy this whole package. I do think that the twin edition is fantastic value for money compared to like buying a separate 360 camera and buying a separate action camera, but that's not really what we're talking about right now. We should probably first talk a little bit about what is new on these individual components. You got a little robot face on here, look at that. Look at that little robot face. Rocka rocka. Just last week, I brought the ONE RS as my only camera on another 3-day backpacking winter camping trip. All right, Bonnie, hope you don't die on this trip. You have been a real pain in the ass. It fared really, really well. Like I'm really impressed with how it handled all the elements, battery life, all that kind of stuff, but I've got a lot of thoughts. Their new primary lens here, I believe they call it the 4K boost lens, is now a 1/2-inch sensor. It's 48 megapixels and shoots 4K 60 at a whole bunch of different focal lengths, from that like 17 millimeter ultra wide view all the way into about 50 millimeters of digital cropping you can do in here. However, to retain the best quality, I like to just put in linear mode, which is around 20 millimeters, and everything's nice and straight. You don't get that fisheye look. That's my personal preference for shooting with this.
Okay, well, off we go.
The brain of this camera, I believe they call it Core RS, is also a lot faster than the previous model, which means that now that like hyper smooth stabilization that Insta360 offers, called flow state, can actually be done in camera. And that means you don't need to bring it into their software to add that like next level of stabilization. It can do that in camera and just get a little MP4 file on your SD card, throw it on your computer, do whatever you want with it. Just really saves time, and it means you don't need to send it into their software to get the most out of it. It also features active HDR footage and a new mode, which I thought was kind of gimmicky at first and turned out to be my favorite way to use it, which is this 6K 235 mode. So in this mode, what you're getting is this like kind of cinema scope, 6,000 pixels wide by 2048, something like that, pixels high. So it's like the same resolution in height of 4K, but you get extra width, another 2,000 pixels off of the sides. And for people who are already going to be editing their footage and adding black bars or putting it on a 235 timeline, this is gonna save you a bit of time, but also just give you a much sharper, clearer image because it's sampling that 6K out of that new 48 megapixel sensor. The battery is also now like 20% larger, which is always a welcome improvement. Really, really quite good. Even in the negative 20 degrees temperatures, this thing held up great, and I was actually mostly having to operate it with the nose on the touchscreen because I had big mitts on. As I had mentioned, it's not just the camera, brain, and battery that have updated. There are also new peripherals that, for me, are kind of the best part of all this. Let me see if I can put a ONE R together for you real quick. This is a collection of Christoph's and my ONE R accessories for different things. With battery, 1-inch sensor, brain, put these together like this. Snap the battery on top to the bottom, and in comes the first issue with the original ONE R, specifically with their case, which is that it opens like this from the top. You can slide that over, lift that up, open, fold back, and you might want to put this camera in, but you can't because the filter thread here is too big. It also doesn't fit through the front, so you actually have to take this off, slide it in, close it, lock that down, and then put that front filter thread back on. It's not a terrible process, but if you're shooting and suddenly the battery is dead, well then it's like, ah, great, can I just open this? No, I have to take this off and then open it all up, yada yada yada. However, here with the new case for the ONE RS, you just have these little buttons here, bloop, slide the camera out, and even with that 1-inch sensor, you can just slide that right back in, close it up. It is so much easier, it is so much faster, and even though the new battery is physically larger, they designed this case to fit both the older batteries and the newer, larger batteries as well. The other accessory that they put out alongside this is right here, and it is called the Quick Reader. And with the Quick Reader, instead of having your micro SD card here inside the camera behind that little door, which is already kind of hard to open when it's in the case, you actually put your micro SD card right in here next to that lightning port, and then this, which still has a rubber gasket, gets pressed in just like that. And now, if maybe you're snowboarding and you've got a clip on your 360 camera that you love and you can't wait to share it, you can just pop this right out, which has your card in it. You can either plug that into your USB-C Android phone or iPad, your MacBook, or you fold this back, you have the lightning port, plugs right into your phone, it'll open the Insta360 app, and you can start editing your clips right away. I basically now just pretend this is a tiny little hard drive. I'll leave a 128 gig card in there, and you're done. It's great. You always have it.
Oh, we've got an actual site.
Let's talk about usability, because what you gain from a modular system like this, you often lose in, well, certainly screen real estate on the rear. It's a much smaller screen. But I am happy to say my winter camping trip, I was able to navigate it just fine with even like the little touchscreen gloves, or when I had my big mitts on, I could competently change settings in almost any way with just the tip of my nose. Overall, the trip was just fantastic. So much fun, so enjoyable, and best of all, well, I mean, not best of all, but for the sake of this video, best of all, the camera worked great. The weather was winter, which I guess is to be expected, but often cold weather doesn't treat cameras and technology well, but the battery held up fine, the screen was good, I didn't have any weird lagging or freezing up issues. And while last year I brought the Go 2 with me on this trip, I'm definitely glad that I brought the ONE RS instead this year. Because having that micro SD slot for expandable storage, having a longer battery life, and then just having far more variety in the types of shots that I could get, because I could go into the 360 camera or zoom in a little tighter, or I could use slow motion, I could use that 6K CinemaScope mode. And having all that added flexibility in such a small package makes grabbing something like this for a trip like that kind of a no-brainer. Ignore the set layout shot today. Things are happening. Specifically, the shipping container studio build out that we've been working on for the past few months is still well underway, but we've been trying not to spoil too much of that before some of those videos are ready. So in this studio build out that we're working on, I actually lost my original 1R in the move. So I've been using the 1X2 and the Go 2 to get all sorts of shots in this build out series that like I just couldn't do without these types of specialty cameras. Sometimes that's putting the Go 2 on the end of a painter stick and just like throwing it into the ceiling to get a huge overhead shot. And sometimes it's been putting the cameras in harm's way, you know, in a spot where I wouldn't typically put my C70 or my FX3 because, well, it's just not worth the risk. Closing remarks, what do I think? I don't know. I forgot most of my gear at the studio. I also forgot to film an outro. Oh, there's a little shelf here. Look at that. Hello. I wanted to try and articulate like who this camera is best suited for, and then I started going through like, well, what are the different ways that I use it? And I realized, well, I use it for like fun adventure videos and memory capturing. I use it with my family when I don't want to have a big thing with me. I use it as a crash camera or to get interesting angles. I use it to spur creativity and try and think outside of the box. And so the point is, this camera isn't for like one specific type of person, and I think that's what makes it so interesting. You can build it out in these different ways to best suit the kinds of shots you want to get. No, it'll never replace like a proper cinema camera, a proper DSLR, but for me anyways, they just like supplement into my workflow so well. So yeah, I'm down. I do have an affiliate link down in the description, so if you are interested in buying this or just checking out the prices, then I'd appreciate you using that link. I do get a small kickback from that, which actually really helps me out to make these kinds of videos. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Insta360. Thanks for continuing to make this camera, because I honestly wasn't sure you would, and you did, and I'm happy about that. Okay, see you guys, got another video, a couple of days, like, I don't know, later this week, I got another video. Love you. Bye.